Hi everybody, Rich Gibbons with SpeakInc, and today we are here with 50,000 watt Neil Pasricha. Neil, good to see you.
50,000 watts.
Yeah. So this guy's, let me see if I can do a very abbreviated CV on Neil. New York Times best-selling author, former corporate leadership exec, Harvard MBA, TED phenom, but most recently, the director for the Institute for Global Happiness. Did I get that right?
You got it, yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't even mention the podcast that you've been on.
So, so I'm glad you touched on that. So a pet project, kind of labor of love in the shadows for Neil is the 3 Books podcast. Tell the viewers a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have decided to spend 15 years of my life looking for the 1,000 most formative books in the world. So I sit down with interesting and inspiring people like Rich Gibbons and Brené Brown and Quentin Tarantino and Malcolm Gladwell, and I ask them which 3 books most changed your life. I do these conversations while I'm traveling, often or sometimes virtually, and it's supposed to create this catalog of books that everybody can read in order to shape your life. Because you know what? We are reading less, I don't know if you know this, Rich, we are reading less than ever before in our history. So,
I believe it.
According to the Time You study, 57% of Americans read zero books last year. I'm talking zero, none.
Even rounding that up, that's still 0.
So we have an issue, right?
Yeah,
Our attention's
yeah.
getting fractured. We're on screens over 5 hours a day. Yep. So this is honestly like a lot of things, it's a solve for myself to try to get back into longer, more compressed wisdom in the form of books. So yes, 3 books is the name of the podcast.
So it was quiet.
Chapter 18 with Rich Gibbons.
It was quiet until they started doing the AV check over here. So I hope you can hear us. But this 3 Books sort of mission you're on is illustrative of one of the things that and there's so much to love about Neil, and this is very bromantic, but there's so much to love about sort of the arc of your thought leadership and your body of work. But the thing I find, when I listen to 3 Books, the thing that I find remarkable is the spectrum, the galaxy of different backgrounds and the different types of people. And of course, those different types of people suggest radically different books.
Yes.
So you end up going down these verticals of probably books that you wouldn't read. Right. And so your intellectual curiosity and the fact that you immerse yourself in all this content, I think there's something to be said in a world of specialization. There's something to be said for cognitive diversity and seeing things through a different lens.
Well,
and
that's
holy smoly, you've seen it through hundreds of different lenses through all these books.
Absolutely. And you know what, these days, Rich, the algorithms have got us. They got us. They won.
Totally.
And so the echo chambers that we're all looking at are so specifically tailored to us, yet there's almost nothing that can broaden you more than reading a book. I got 4 books in my backpack right now to kind of flip through on my way home. And you know what? It's very, very valuable because absolutely, as a speaker, as somebody who's trying to write stuff, I need to be pushed in directions that I don't even know exist. Right? In order to find those directions, I talk to people and I say, which 3 books most changed your life? Hey, that's why I read that wonderful book that you gave me by Barbara Demnick.
Yes.
Wow, when was I going to read a giant, thick book about what it's like living in North Korea? If you hadn't told me about it, I would not have found that book.
Well, and the other thing, when you're on the receiving end of...
Nothing to envy.
Hey, Nothing to envy. Yeah. Good for you. I couldn't even remember the name of it. But when you're on the receiving end of Neil's question, hey, what 3 books have you read that most shaped and changed the way you think about the world and your life? It really gets you, it's very reflective.
Yeah.
And I was, after you asked me that question, I'm thinking, well, gosh, which books and why?
Yeah.
How did it affect the way I see the world?
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's a really, really fun exercise.
And we've talked about the podcast so far now for a few minutes. We've kind of pulled up, but if I can just zoom it back up a level, yes, reading fiction on a real book is one of a few tools and habits and behaviors I give people from the stage, right? Because what I'm trying to counsel people to do is I say, hey, look, research from Australia shows if you look at a bright screen within an hour of bedtime, your brain does not produce enough melatonin overnight. That is the sleep hormone responsible for giving you a deep, restful sleep. So get off the screen and read a book. Meet your family again. Sometimes I say play Rose, Rose, Thorn, Bud around the dinner table.
Love that.
Rose, Rose, Thorn, Bud, right? So at the end of the day, I want to kind of give people a happiness practice that sets them up for a good night's sleep.
Right.
I also have that practice in the morning, which I don't know if you do or not, but I've been counseling about.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Okay, so when you wake up in the morning, most people are jostled senseless because they are looking at their phone immediately. And I say, wait a minute, what were you doing right before bed? Looking at my phone. What if my boss emailed me? What if my sister texted me? What if somebody commented on my Instagram? What's going on with the Hang Seng Index? Whatever. And I say, well, where was your phone overnight? And they say, like, if not in the clutches of your paw.
Sure, 18 inches from your head.
Exactly.
Right,
well,
right.
what if you drank a bottle of wine before bed every night, slept within 18 inches of a bottle of wine, and drank a bottle of wine when you woke up every morning? We'd call you an alcoholic. Right now, we're phoneaholics. And so what I tell people to do is when you wake up in the morning, don't have the phone in your bed. Right. That's the first thing. You don't have the phone in your bed. Instead, grab a pen, grab a piece of paper, and do something I call the 2-minute morning practice. 3 prompts backed by research in order to give you a good start to the day. Prime your brain for positivity in the morning, Rich, by writing down, I will let go of, I am grateful for, and I will focus on. So what I do on stage is I take people through the research behind each of these prompts. We sometimes, if there's a long enough session, we do it together. I sometimes walk out of the audience and give somebody a journal when they commit to doing it, because commitment is that's what makes you do it. When you tell people you're going to do it. Sure. And so these simple practices, whether it's 2-minute mornings, right when you wake up, whether it's Rose, Rose, Thorn, Bud at the dinner table, whether it's reading 2 pages of fiction before bed, are simple happiness, research-based practices that give people, an accessible way to say, hey, I can go back from this conference and I can do that with my husband. I can do that with my wife. I can do that with my anxious teen at home. Yeah. And so this is really what I'm trying to do. It's just give people simple tools. Right.
Well, and in case you haven't guessed, it's kind of a mission. It's in this guy's heart to communicate ways to effectively, intentionally, and proactively curate happiness. Because you could have all the money in the world, and if you're miserable, you're miserable. Yeah. Right? Which is not where you want to be. The other thing you were talking about, the phone 18 inches from your head. Yes. I'd heard also, I can't remember where I heard it, but sort of creating a moat around your day, that your sort of neurologic, your psychologic resources are at a low in the 30 minutes right before you go to bed, and also low in the 30 minutes when you wake up in the morning. Yes. And I have started just creating a blackout period. So I don't read that horrible bad news email 9 minutes before I'm supposed to go to sleep, and then I'm lying there awake.
That's that's the other thing. We are low resilience at night, so we send emails the next morning, you're like, ooh, I didn't sound very good.
Yeah, right. So creating that blackout. But in closing here, for those out on the interwebs, are there any tools, hacks, things that are just rooted in basic common sense and easily accessible that people should know about?
Yeah, well, lately what I've been doing is, right now there's a palpable sense of general unease in society. It's not just me saying this. We got higher than ever rates of anxiety, depression, loneliness, suicide. It's no wonder that's sort of right there below the surface for everybody. So what I do from the stage now these days, Rich, and you'll see it in just a minute, is I ask the people, what is it? Why aren't we happy, right? Yeah. And you get all these things shouted out from the audience. It's kind of a wonderful little cacophony of did I say that right? Cacophony?
Cacophony.
Cacophony. I knew you'd correct me on that. Well, you're a word nerd, and I love it. Yeah. And then I take that and I say, you know what? On top of all that, there's a model that we grew up with about happiness that's totally backwards. We grew up thinking that if you do great work, then you have a big success, and then you will be happy. My parents told me this: study hard, get great straight A's, become a doctor or whatever, right? But it's not like that. In fact, it's reversed. So one thing I do on stage is I say, if we can train our brains to think of happiness like a habit, like a practice. We got a $20 plastic card in our pocket telling us to go to the gym, but where's the mental health equivalent? Right. Then you be happy first. You move it to the front of the equation, then the great work and the big success follows. I ladle in the research, talking about how your productivity goes up 31%, your sales goes up 37%, your creativity goes up 300%. Now it's something we want to play for because we live longer. Right. We live longer. We do better in our careers. So switching that model around and saying above all that, the goal's not to be perfectly happy, it's just to be a little better than before. If even people take away even just one takeaway, one nugget, one practice they're going to do with their family, I call that a win. I call that a win. They got enough stuff in the binder from the conference. If I can just give them one thing, so that's victory.
In terms of universal applicability of your content, your focus, if you're Homo sapien, this is applicable. So regardless of industry, Neil's content is just so good. It's so entertaining. He's stand-up comedy, funny.
And as of today, he knows how to pronounce cacophony.
Exhibit A right there. So anybody out there on the interwebs looking for an energetic, fun research data, sort of it's got a foundation in data and research, and just universally applicable to anyone out there, that's your guy.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome.
This was very kind of you.
Cheers. See you soon.
See you soon.